So, hello everyone, we are once again back with the YouTube session. So, we have already taken some topics in the last session which has been taken up day before. So, where I have taken a 1 hour session with respect to the various happenings that have been taken up in the science and technology domain in different countries in the world. So, but before we start today, I just wanted to confirm that if everyone can see as well as hear me. So, once that is clear, we'll be able to start it. So, we have some interesting topics to be taken up. We'll be taking up about half an hour session today, and this session will be continued every day at the same time. So every day at the same time we'll be taking a half an hour session. So if you can see as well as hear me, it's just confirm that we will be starting the discussion now, please. So before we start with the topic number 1, we have been discussing a lot of issues in the case of international relations, in the case of security perspective. So we have a great problem with the countries that is like United States of America and Iran. So both of them were competing with each other like anything, where we have seen such kind of a case where both the countries have started blaming each other in such a way that they even designated their militaries also as a terrorist organizations. Isn't it? Such kind of situation we have seen. When you talk about this, United States of America, after Mr. Donald Trump has become the president of United States of America, so he stated very clearly that he wants to leave the Iran nuclear deal. The Iran nuclear deal has been signed to prevent Iran from procuring more uranium, so to prevent uranium enrichment and look after the peace of that particular region in particular. But with action of Donald Trump, the situation has become worse and many changes have happened in that particular region right after that. And now, since from the very beginning, Iran has become one such kind of a country where now after US has left the Iran nuclear deal, the Iran Revolutionary Guard Corps, so these are directly under the control of this supreme leader of this particular Iran. So this Iran Revolutionary Guard has launched its first ever Republic first military satellite into the orbit. So from the past many years, the United States of America has been accusing that the Iran must have been building the secret programs with respect to the secret space programs and all. But to a surprise of a world, not just to the United States of America, but Iran has launched a military satellite, which has absolutely caused a suspicion in the world, especially in the thoughts of United States of America. So after that, there is no independent confirmation of this has been done, but however, they have named this as Noor or light. Absolutely, there is no doubt. Concerns will definitely be raised because of the way the Iran has done it. So now, this launch also have caused a great concerns about it. Especially, this sort of satellites could be misused by Iran to develop the intercontinental ballistic missiles. Isn't it? Absolutely, they must be causing this kind of issue. Iran has already abandoned all the limitations of the Iran nuclear deal. So after this, Donald Trump has did what he was supposed to do. So this Trump's decision has escalated the issue in such a way that the entire region in this, Iran and the entire Gulf region has been impacted a lot. As I said we have seen the drone strike that has been done by the United States of America on Iran top general also. So that has literally caused a great tensions and which impacted the oil trade also. So it has a multiple relation. It is something which can be related to the international relations too. But I don't want to get into the IR, but rather I'll try to focus specifically on the science and tech. So as they have launched this satellite, it would definitely create suspicion in the world. And on the official website also, the Iran Revolutionary Guard has stated that the satellite has been successfully reached an orbit of 425 kilometers above the surface of Earth, which they call it as first military satellite ever launched by Tehran. This is the word they have given. So 3-stage satellite launch took from Iran's central desert, they have stated with respect to it. And now Is it the first time they have done it? No. Why is that so? Because prior to this, Iran has tried launching different kind of satellites too. For example, they have earlier, the paramilitary force said it used a Gusade or a messenger satellite carrier to put the device into space, a previously unheard of a system. So they have tried a lot of times, but they were never ever successful too. So finally, they say that they were successful in the launch, so which has caused some kind of concerns too. Earlier, they have failed in many attempts, like in Zafar 1 and all. I don't think we don't have to get into that much of details. But the thing is very clear that which has raised the concerns in the world with respect to the peace in the region too. Now, having discussed this, currently the world is seeing a greatest ever pandemic. And this pandemic has resulted in the deaths of lakhs of people, and millions of people are suffering. And we, on the other side, India is also battling with this pandemic. But what are we doing? See, let's imagine a case. If a person is severely affected with the COVID-19, let's say that if a person is severely affected with the COVID-19, what is the last thing that you do? Anyone? If a person is affected a lot, a severe affection has been done, what would be the person will be done? Yes, absolutely. In the last try, that what we'll be doing in the severe case, they would put this person on a ventilator, isn't it? So which means this person would be placed in the critical units. Now in the critical units, how long the person can remain? They have to remain for longer time. Absolutely, there is no option. Now for the longer time they live in the critical units, and these people have already been COVID-19 positive, so that means no people would come to them. So absolutely, will it affect the person mentally or not? There is a possibility that the person could be affected mentally, isn't it? So now what happens? Here comes a concept called as post-intensive care syndrome. What is happening after that? It is some kind of a syndrome after the intensive care. So there are many reports have been coming up which states that the people who need intensive care, after coming out of it, they are taking a longer time for the recovery. Absolutely, that a person comes out of the ICU very well, but this person has been living alone for all these times. So this person, there is a greater possibility the person could be affected a lot. So this is what we call it as post-intensive care syndrome. Now, the World Health Organization China Joint Mission reported that they have examined 55,924 laboratory confirmed cases of COVID-19. Of them, 6.1% of the people have been classified as critical. So which means these people, the 6.1% of the people, have faced some kind of respiratory shocks. So obviously they have resulted in some kind of multiple organ failure. So absolutely these people have to be kept in the ICU. So now the Lancet, which is actually a health magazine, stated that the critically ill COVID-19 patients are older and have more other comorbidities, that is apart from the COVID-19, they're also having some other kind of issues like diabetes, hypertension and all. At the same time, the acute respiratory distress syndrome, which is also one of the impact of the COVID-19, is a common reason. Like when I'm facing a difficulty in breathing, I'll be placed under the ICU. I'll be placed for this particular thing. And this problem needs to be resolved. And this person needs a mechanical ventilation. That's what you've done through a ventilator. So now, this post-intensive, this particular post-intensive care syndrome is one such kind of thing which would lead to an ability that the person may lose the ability to think. That may impact the psychological health of a person. Similarly, the physical function of a person, as Imran has pointed out rightly, that it may cause wasting of the muscles too. So how do they define it? So this is defined as a new or worsening impairment. It could be new or maybe an extension to some kind of impairment in physical. That is nothing but physical is something like the persons would not be doing any work, they just lie on a bed. So absolutely that would lead to weakness of a person, which we call it as a neuromuscular weakness. Number one. Then the cognitive one, The person just sits on the bed, just live on a bed in this particular ICU. So they absolutely lose the ability to think and judge what to do and what not to do. And then we also have the mental status of the person. Like if the person is going into critical state. So all of these could be the impacts of the post-intensive care syndrome. So now these patients may feel this neuromuscular weakness because they will not be moving much, so that would be happening. Psychological things can also lead to a depression. Yes, this is a very common thing that we are seeing these days. Like people are getting into depression a lot of times. So this would be leading to a person, they may be turning into a depression, anxiety and a post-traumatic stress disorder. So after that they would be under tremendous stress too. And the most common symptoms are the generalized weakness, fatigue, decreased mobility, depressed mood, sexual dysfunction, sleep disturbances and cognitive issues. These are the symptoms of the post-intensive care syndrome. Now coming to this particular thing, Milind, what could be asked in this is basically, now when you are given an option, when you are given a question, like you would be going through multiple things. For example, the COVID-19 may not have just a kind of, social distancing sort of relation questions, but what are the other implications that a person could see? Now, it's not just during the COVID-19, after COVID-19, what exactly the person could also go through. So this sort of thing would be an extension to that. Right? So that is how it could actually help you. So these symptoms would be last for few months or years after the recovery. So this is what the people have said. But what exactly will cause it? As I said you, that the person would be on mechanical ventilation and they will be also experiencing the sepsis. Now can anyone tell me what is sepsis? We had a discussion on sepsis in the last class if I'm not wrong. We had a discussion on sepsis. What exactly is a sepsis? Anyone? You can comment that in the comment section, by the way. Yes, so it's basically about the response of the immune system of a person, isn't it? When you're suffering with some kind of a disease, about how the immune system is responding, and when you take the medicines and all, how it's nothing but overreaction of the immune system of body, which would lead to the sepsis, which could lead to multiple organ dysfunction. Right? So multiple organ failure or a prolonged duration of bed store deep sedation. Now, according to this particular clinic, Cleveland Clinic, so a combination of factors can affect the aspects of ICU service life. So 33% of the people on ventilators may develop ICU acquired muscle weakness. 33% of the people may develop ICU acquired muscle weakness, if you could see. So that means that's what Imran has also been pointing up to. Apart from that, 50% of the people who develop sepsis and 50% of the people who stay in ICU at least for 1 week are also prone to this ICU acquired muscle weakness they are talking about. So patients who are developing this have to at least 1 year they would take to recover. Until then, they would be facing different kind of things. They would also face difficulty in doing the regular day-to-day activities like grooming, dressing properly, feeding, bathing, walking. All of these would also become really tough for them. After leaving ICU, 30 to 80% of the people may develop problems related to cognitive function. That is nothing but thinking, ability to think and take some decision. And now, other kind of mental issues also would be coming up. Like they will be facing really very difficult thing in staying asleep or falling asleep. So all such kind of things could be a thing. And what could be the treatment for that now? We are talking a lot about post-intensive care syndrome. Now you would ask, what is the treatment for that? So it is recommended that to avoid this particular thing, patients will be generally kept in a deep sedation. So that is nothing but, generally in this kind of cases, the patient should not suffer much. So that could, if the organ failure is happening, that would be causing a great problem. So that's why we also had a discussion while we are dealing with the sepsis, that patient would be kept in artificial coma. So it is recommended that to avoid this particular post-intensive care syndrome, patients' use of deep sedation is limited and early mobility is encouraged. So we cannot make that particular patient to sleep longer, sit calmly, but rather we have to make them move much. So mobility is encouraged in this person. Apart from that, we have to give them more physical as well as occupational therapy. That would be the next thing. Very good, Imran. Very good. So now the patient should also be given lowest dose of pain medications when it is possible to, and that should be put on lungs or cardiovascular rehabilitation treatments, and they should be treated for anxiety, PTSD and all. Right? So these are the things. Now the only thing finally I'll tell you this quick summary of this. So this particular a person, when I'm putting him under the ICU, the person cannot to go out, right? The person cannot to go out. That would be number one. Apart from that, the person think like whatever they want. That would have an impact on their mental health, right? Physically, the person cannot do anything. So all of these would lead to multiple issues in the person. So we need to address one by one of them. So that is what we are doing for the treatment here. So that's about the post-intensive care syndrome. And I hope that's very clear. Now we'll move to the next one. Now, so we all know that every organism that we have in the world is basically something which takes in oxygen, releases carbon dioxide, at least when we talk about living organisms. Now we are going to talk about something very different that is called as Henegua salminicola. So any animal, including the humans, any of us, we generally require energy, isn't it? To do any kind of activity. For example, I'm explaining certain things to you. For doing these things, I also require energy. But for this energy to be acquired, oxygen is also very important. So aerobic respiration, that is the oxygen intake, is one of the chemical reaction through which organisms take oxygen and release carbon dioxide into the atmosphere. That is one of these particular chemical reaction which would give the energy that is required for the people. But through this mechanism, the energy, when the oxygen is taken in, the chemical reactions are going on, the energy would be transferred to the cells in a human body, which could be used for any other purpose. That's a different story. But here comes the researchers of the Tel Aviv University. They say that we have found an animal which is a non-oxygen breathing animal. What does it mean now? Absolutely, when we find something called non-oxygen breathing animal, that would definitely raise an interest upon us. So, they say that we have found a non-oxygen breathing animal which would change the assumption of a science that every animal uses the aerobic respiration. So, that's not the case, they say. Apart from that, that is one challenge they are doing. The other challenge that they are talking is that about the evolution of organisms. We generally talk that organisms have been evolved from single cell organisms to the multicellular organisms, right? So now they are talking about this particular area where the non-oxygen breathing organism, so they would be turning into this particular, they have been using the unnecessary genes and all. So we go through different kind of scenarios when we talk about the organism. And in this one, the Henegua salminicola we are talking about, the evolution in it is a very, very different thing. Where the unnecessary genes which are responsible for aerobic respiration, in that they have some unnecessary genes which are responsible for the aerobic respiration. That makes it very clear it is something which do the anaerobic respiration. And now you may ask me, is it really an animal? You are really surprised to know. But yes, this organism is basically less than 10-celled microscopic parasite. This is basically not an animal exactly, but it's a kind of a parasite, they say, which is living in muzzle of a salmon. So you must have heard a lot about it, salmon fish and all. So this is a part, it is present within the muzzle of a salmon. And now, what do the researchers say? So they say that as this organism able to develop further, as it moved further, so it stopped breathing. It stopped breathing. It stopped consumption of oxygen. Like basically the oxygen itself is for the production of energy, right? Now they say that this organism as it's evolved, it stopped breathing. It stopped consumption of oxygen. So which means it has completely dependent on anaerobic respiration. That is, without the presence of oxygen, they're dependent on it. Is everyone clear? Is everyone following it? So anyone, any doubts, please feel free to ask me now. Okay. Now, apart from it, Other organisms like fungi and amoeba, they also are found in anaerobic environments, lost the ability to breathe as the time went. So what this study shows that the same can happen in the case of animals. Now this is interesting. Parasite does not require oxygen was discovered by accident. It is not wantedly they were looking for this. Actually, they have discussed it accidentally. And one of these researchers say that it did not have a mitochondrial genome. They say that it did not have a mitochondrial genome. So we know that we proudly say that mitochondria is a powerhouse of a cell. But interestingly, it does not have mitochondria. So mitochondria is something which takes oxygen, they make energy. But this is not the case, it is here. So they say that the parasite does not breathe oxygen. So this is what they are talking about. So that's about the Henegua salminicola. Right? So I hope that is clear. So we have about a few minutes left for our session. So we'll go with the next topic, that will be red snow. That would be red snow. Now generally, I hope everyone remembers we discussed about something called black carbon in the last session. Anaerobic is nothing but like you want to take in oxygen. So aerobic is that area where you take oxygen through the intake of this particular respiration, but anaerobic is that absence of oxygen indicates anaerobic. Okay? Right. So now I was discussing about the black carbon. We had an interesting discussion where it is going and settling up in some kind of glaciers which is leading to the melting and all. But here we are going to talk about something else, what we call it as red snow. The snow turning into red in color. So for the past few weeks, what exactly happened is this. Snow around, there's a base of Ukraine called as Vernadsky in the Antarctica's coast. In the northern part of Antarctica, there's a base of Ukraine called as Vernadsky has started taking a red color. They have stated a red color. So where the courtesy of this algae that is thriving in a freezing weather. So because of the red in color, they started calling it as a watermelon snow. But absolutely, there is something that we have to look into. So we all know that, I just want to know from all of us that, what do you mean by this? When you talk about snow, does it have low albedo or a high albedo? When you talk about snow, does it have low or a high albedo? Anyone please? Yes, please. So, this would definitely be very interesting. I just wanted to know from you. So, what is the importance of it? Now, what is the importance of albedo when it comes to the snow? At least tell me this. The importance of albedo when it comes to the snow. What is the importance of albedo? What does it impact? Now when you say this red snow is very interesting here, because the red snow would actually make it much easier for the sunlight that is coming and falling on it. So that would make the snow caps, whatever it is present, would be melted easily. So absolutely what happens now when the snow that is present is melting, that would lead to increase in the sea level. Isn't it? So this is what generally going to happen. So now, the Greek philosopher Aristotle is believed to be one of the first person to give a written account on this watermelon snow over 2000 years ago. This is an interesting point again. Aristotle talked about this watermelon snow about 2000 years ago. So in the history of animals, Aristotle did mention, what is that? I'm just quoting what Aristotle has mentioned. I'm stating that, by the way, living animals are found in substances that are usually supposed to be incapable of putrefaction. For instance, worms are found in long-lying snow, and snow of this description gets reddish in color, and grub that is engendered in it is red, as might have been expected, and is also hairy. So you don't have to get into the most details of this particular quote. But now he did mention about something called red color snow. But now our focus is not about what Aristotle has mentioned, but our focus would be that why is the snow turning red? So according to a report in 2016 in the New York Times, it states that algae which is present around the Ukrainian base called Vladvarsky has been growing well in the freezing temperatures and the liquid water. Whatever the freezing temperature and liquid water, this algae is growing like anything. And during the summer, these green algae, when it get a lot of sun, they start producing a natural sunscreen. So that would trade it in the shades of pink and red. In the summer, they produce a natural sunscreen which actually shades this algae in pink and red in color. In the winter, they won't do anything. So the algae that produce the tinted sunscreen. So what happens now when they become red in color? So they would actually get more of this particular sunlight. Got the point? So this is how the algae which is present in the northern part of this peninsula of Antarctica is the reason why it is turning it this way. And the report also mentioned that the snow becomes darker from the tinge. It absorbs more heat, as a result which it melts faster. The darker it becomes, the more heat that would be absorbing, which would make it much melting too. And this one is not uncommon in the polar settings of the world, because the change in this particular snow's albedo is something which would have an impact on that. So they have been mentioning this. Even there has been a mention of something like Antarctic also, which is also one of the very important thing with respect to the snow as well as ice albedo. So but according to the Alaska Pacific University, the melting snow is good for the algae who basically depend on it, but it's not for us, isn't it? So let's discuss one last topic and wind up for the day. Okay, the session would be a 30-minute session only. Every day we'll be having it. So we'll discuss one last topic and we'll close it. Okay, so the last topic that we'll be discussing today would be the technical textiles mission. So the Cabinet Committee on Economic Affairs, as we all know, is the one which would be headed by the Prime Minister. So it has approved that we want to set up a national technical textiles mission with an outlay of about 1480 crores. And what is a technical textile? When we say technical textile, see, these are the things which we don't use for some aesthetic purposes. Rather, we use them for what? For the technical purpose, for the industrial purpose. So the aim is that we have to put the country as a global leader in the technical textiles and increase the use of technical textiles in the market in the country. And this will be implemented from 2020-21 to basically for 4 years, where they will be having 4 components in that. And what are the components? Let's look into that. The first component they focus is only on the research and development, because when you don't have new innovation, you cannot bring anything new. The first component of it is specifically focused on research and development, and then they will innovate with an outlay of about 1000 crores. That's number one. The component number one focus on research and development, and they want to develop it much more. And the research that will be taken up will be at both, that is fiber level and application based. So now, where they would try to come across with the geotextiles, that is which we generally use for the earth related purpose, like agro textiles, medical textiles, sports textiles. For example, our own the personal protective equipment which is in the news now because of the COVID-19 is also a technical textile actually, right? So all these things would play a very important role. That's a component number one, is all about the research and development. And second one is about promotion and development of the market. When we have a research and development, we also need a promotion for that. So that would be done here, where they want Indian textile segment to be estimated at 16 billion, which is 6% of the 250 billions. So we want that to be more development too. So we have to increase this penetration. Right now, we are between 5% to 10%, but where the world developed countries are at 30% to 70%. So we want to do it much better way. And the mission says we want to get a domestic market size to $40 billion to $50 billion. So this is how we have to increase our domestic market by 2024. So number one was research and development. Number two, promotion and development of market for the technical textiles. 2 components are done. I said 4 components are there. The third component, they focus on promotion of this particular textile exports now, where we are focusing on exports here, where the country from which we will be exporting, where right now it is 14,000 crores, this has to be increased to 20,000 crores by 21-22, and average we want 10% of growth. I hope that's clear. Number 1, research and development. Number 2, promotion and development of market. Number 3, export. And the last component would be on education, training and skill development. So these are the various components of the National Technical Textiles Mission. I'm repeating it once again. The government has announced that we have to use the technical textiles well. So technical textiles need to be promoted well. Technical textiles need to be promoted well. So for that, they have launched this particular National Technical Textiles Mission with 4 components. Component number 1 will be focused on research and development. Component number 2 will be focusing on promotion and development of market. Component number 3 focus on exports. And finally, component number 4 focus on education, training and skill development. So these are the 4 components we have, guys. So that is for the day, and tomorrow we'll be back again at the same time with the 4:30 p.m. So guys, I just want to share you the referral code of this one for Unacademy Plus subscription. If anyone is interested, you could just use this code so that you would get a 10% off. You have many batches taken up, so just check it out, guys. Thank you so much. See you all again tomorrow at the same time. But if any one of you have any doubts, please you can reach out. You can drop the comments in the comment section. I'll definitely be looking into them and getting back to you tomorrow in the next class. Right? Take care, everyone. Have a great day. See you tomorrow. Till then, bye-bye.